In all the years that I've been in ministry, around 46 years, I couldn't have done it had it not been for the lady that stays alongside of me, my beloved wife, now since 1972. She has been faithful to follow me, and so I'm dedicating this Drone Bear Pause Part 2, God's Calling on my life. I wouldn't have had a calling apart from Marilyn wanting to join that call. Here's what happened. Now, you'll recall in Part 1, Steve Phillips basically said, "You're fired. You don't do boats good." And I did this with loving care. He's a Christian. We embrace. All of that is in Part 1. In Part 2, I want to take you to what happened when I left Battle Rock and met with the Lord and felt that He was calling me into full-time ministry. It dawned on me as I was driving home, wait a minute, I have to tell my wife. And so you can see behind me, this is the little cottage that we lived in. It was the first house that we had purchased. And I had to go to Marilyn and tell her. So my door was on the side. I walked in. That large window that you see is the living room. And then right next to it, that smaller window is the dining room. And that itsy bitsy teeny weeny little window is the kitchen area. And next to that is the den. While Marilyn was in the kitchen in that small window area, she was washing dishes. I'll never forget it. And I walked in and I go, "Marilyn, Steve Phillips basically fired me because I'm a terrible boat builder." And on top of all that, I went distraught to Battle Rock and I faced the Lord, and I was there for over an hour or two. I forgot how much time. I lost track of time. And the Lord called me into full-time ministry, and He says, "I'll never be working for man again, that I will be working for Him." I didn't know what she would do. She was quiet, silent, and took it quite well. She asked a very important question. She says, "How are we going to get money?" I go like, oh yeah, I forgot to ask the Lord that. Let me go ask the Lord. So I went into that room there, that's the den, and I knelt down. We had a couch. I knelt on the floor. She was right next to me, a hop, skip, and a jump right next to me in the kitchen washing dishes. I knelt down and I said, "Lord, you forgot to tell me how I'm going to get money." And He took me to a passage in my mind. I don't remember reading it recently, and it was Isaiah 55. He says, "Why are you laboring for bread, for what is not?" And it's basically a passage that we labor for things of the world, but we don't labor for God. And the Lord spoke to my heart, and He said, "I'm going to provide bread and sustenance for you as you trust me. You just watch and wait and see how I will guide and how I will provide." And so I went in there, go, "Marilyn, the Lord just took me to Isaiah 55, is the early part of it, and shared with me that He's going to provide." And you'd think she'd have a conniption fit. She didn't. She said, "Okay." And she took it so well. That is the remarkable woman that God has given to me. And so she's followed me all of the years of our ministry through thick and thin, motor homes, sleeping in adverse conditions, living from hand to mouth, never knowing where our next meal would come from, and never has complained. God has been faithful. In fact, she's not money grubbing. Both of us aren't. And we learn to live with and we learn to live without. Like Paul says, "I know how to base and I know how to abound." We've had both. And God has been faithful. He has been faithful because my wife has been faithful to me. And I was able to do the work that God had called me to do because she was willing to follow. It reminds me of Ruth, where she said to Naomi, "I will go where you go. I will follow where you are." Basically, I'm in it all the way. Whatever you do, I will do with you, and I will be with you. And that was the blessing that my wife has been to me. And so for those of you that feel that you have a calling in your life and you want to go into the ministry, I'd like to say, I pray that God gives you a wife that will allow you to go freely and never hold that against you. It doesn't mean she has to be in full-time ministry with you, but she's willing to serve. And so you ladies that are listening, if you have a husband that feels he's being called into ministry, my challenge to you is just serve. Serve your husband as unto the Lord, and trust the Lord that He will guide and provide. Your life will be miraculous in nature. You will see things that you would have never dreamed of because you were willing to submit, serve, and follow. And men, always regard your wife with tenderness. Take her out, date her, don't neglect her, spend time with her, encourage her, walk alongside of her. It's not like you're in the ministry and you leave her in the dust. No, you are joint heirs together. You both are in the ministry together. And in eternity, Marilyn is going to get the reward that God chooses to place on me for having been the front man, that behind the scenes, there was a godly woman who stood alongside of me. So I want to encourage you to be that kind of woman and to be that kind of husband to the wife that will follow where you go. I leave you with this word to pause and ponder.